Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Mocha Speaks podcast. I'm here with John Choe. If you remember the story, John Choe got arrested in Athens, Clarke County for not showing his ID. This fight has been going on for months now, but we do have some good news, and we have an opportunity to have a follow-up conversation with John. So, how are you doing today?
I'm really doing well, thank you, Mocha. Appreciate the opportunity to follow up on your initial podcast.
So a lot of people been asking what happened to John Cho's story. People have been inboxing us, text messaging me, and I've been telling people he's going to court in September. He's going to court in September. The date was, I believe, was it September 23rd?
I believe it was around that time, yes.
And so September 23rd is not here yet, but we do have good news. So why don't you tell us what has happened over this period of time?
Sure. As you know, I have been going back and forth between New York and Georgia to participate in court hearings and filing of motions by my attorney. Um, I had mentioned maybe that my first attorney actually surprised everyone and dropped out of my case. And so I was forced to hire another second attorney who submitted a motion to suppress, which is basically arguing that because I was charged with obstruction, that there has to be an underlying crime uh, in which the obstruction charge needs to be connected with. And he was able to show through his motion and in the hearing that I participated in that the police officers had no underlying crime that they witnessed. There was no probable cause for me to be charged with obstruction. And so we were waiting for many weeks for the judge to decide on whether to grant our motion. And he did end up issuing um, a ruling that granted our motion to suppress, which basically put the prosecutor in a very difficult position because he could go to trial in September but wouldn't be able to present any evidence because the judge basically said there's no crime here. And so the prosecutor, Solicitor General Fleenor, I believe his name is, um, was forced to dismiss the case. And that's where we are today. Uh,
Congratulations. I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, after going through all of that, it's like, for people to hear that, it's encouraging. It's really encouraging and it's inspiring to know that you stood your ground. You didn't fold. You didn't plea out, especially that you knew that you had to go back and forth because a lot of people plea out just to get it over with and behind them. You stood your ground. So throughout this journey, what has it been for you like emotionally? Because, I read in your blog where you're traveling, you're having these different experiences and connections with different people and different places, but this legal battle is lingering, just lingering in the back. So, what has it been like for you?
Yeah, like you're saying, it was like this dull pain that was really um, affecting me throughout my journey. And once the case was dismissed, I felt a lightness. I felt a great weight lift off me. I felt um, a healing in some ways of the trauma, of the initial trauma of being arrested and detained in Georgia, and I feel free. I feel like liberation is something that is carrying me right now. The wind of liberation. Um, and you mentioned that I did stick with this particular path, legal path, and one of the important reasons why I did that was because I felt there was a social justice element to what happened to me that it wasn't just about my case, but about the many people that I met actually in Clark County jail who had been similarly mistreated and arbitrarily arrested for innocuous, uh, violations, jaywalking, for example. Many of these people were African American, working class people whose lives, their jobs, their families are now jeopardized because maybe they didn't have enough money to get out of jail that day. But I feel very strongly a sense of injustice that I witnessed has to be addressed. And that's why I went the full mile. I refuse to take any kind of plea agreements. I refused alternate sentencing programs that were offered to me because I felt like, one, I had done nothing wrong, but secondly, there was an important social statement that needed to be made by me pursuing justice uh, 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 um, uh, to the full extent of the law. And that's why I felt like it's important for me to stick to this path of fighting the police department and fighting the prosecutor and forcing them to dismiss this case, or go to trial. Fully prepared to go to trial and argue my case in court and convince the jury that I had done nothing wrong, but that it was actually the police through their pattern of behavior and um, arbitrary pattern of arrest that is actually the community threat here. They are the ones that need to be put on trial.
Mhm. So do you know the first attorney was the tell me a little bit about the first attorney. Were they attorney from Athens, Clark County? And do you know why they decided to drop your well, not drop, but pull out of your case?
Well, it's somewhat of a mystery to me because when I had first approached this attorney who uh, actually practices in Athens, Clark County, he told me that he had a very strong relationship with law enforcement and the prosecutor's office. Um, and I told him that there was no way that I would take any kind of plea deal or alternative sentencing program or pay any fines to make this go away. That I was fully prepared to spend months or years fighting for justice. And um, a couple of months down the line, for whatever reason, uh, maybe because of pressure from the prosecutor's office, he decided to bail on me and drop the case. And so I had to basically start from scratch to find a new attorney who would actually take this case seriously and um, fully represent me and advocate on my behalf.
Okay, and was the second attorney from Athens, Clark County as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Adam Levin, my second attorney, actually is based in and practices in Athens, Clark County, and turned out to be an amazing litigator. He did go after um, the police department in terms of questioning uh, the evidence and the facts that they presented, and was able to come up with this legal strategy of submitting a motion to suppress, which was a key, I believe, in getting my case dismissed.
Do you mind mentioning the name of that attorney?
Yeah, so the second attorney, his name is Adam Levin, and he's also based in Athens, Clark County. I would highly recommend him if there are people in similar situations as myself.
Thank you. And go Adam. All right, because there is talk in Athens, Clark County, where people don't feel comfortable with hiring private attorneys here because they feel like they have a relationship with, the judges and the police department, so they're not going to fight as hard for them. And so a lot of people still end up spending a lot of money and, settling for something that they didn't feel like they should have settled for necessarily, but they don't have the money to continue to fight. So that is also, that's why I want to, give kudos to people, or to give flowers to the attorneys and people that's out there doing that, that's doing the good work. So people know that there is attorneys here in Athens, Clarke County, and throughout the state of Georgia that's willing to fight for you. And so now that the case is behind you, if we want to say it's behind you because it's something that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. Uh, Now that the case is behind you, what is next for you personally and professionally?
Thank you for that question. It's something that I'm still considering, but I would love to continue my journey. I had originally envisioned traveling throughout the length of North and South America through the Pan American Highway and connecting with the different communities there, listening to people along the way and uplifting their stories. As I mentioned, I'm a member of the Religious Society of Friends, and I am also traveling in the ministry. And part of my ministry is to bear witness to injustice, and to call for peace and reconciliation. And that's something that I hope to continue now that uh, this criminal case has ended. Um, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but on my way to Alaska, I was stopped at the Canadian border and was turned away because they found out that I had this legal case pending in Georgia. And so I felt really uh, uh, I didn't feel good that this case was restricting my ability to travel and was basically tying me down. But again, once uh, the case was dismissed, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief, and knowing that I could travel and not be restricted in terms of my ability to go where I wanted to go. Um, the other thing that I want to pursue is to really focus on this issue of um, the criminal justice system, the way that uh, certain people are being profiled and detained unjustly, not just in our prison system, but in our jails, which are pre-trial detention centers. And that's where I spent that day when I was arrested. Meeting people who um, had not been convicted of any crime, but because they couldn't pay a bond, are basically spending um, their time locked away and having their bodily autonomy severely restricted um, for no reason, really. Some of these charges, like I said, jaywalking. Um, I'm from New York. Everyone jaywalks in New York. You would never go to jail for jaywalking in New York, but to see people whose lives are being ruined for walking across the street um, when there are no cars driving, it makes me uh, so angry that I want to continue working on this issue, continue working with organizations. Yeah, so I feel that this is an issue that I'm going to carry with me as a concern, that I want to continue to fight for justice for the people who didn't have as much resources as I did to fight
Yeah.
back and to seek justice. Um, and I hope to actually go back to Georgia and work with some of the groups that I've met along the way, and see how I can contribute to bettering the lives of the people who continue to suffer from an unjust legal system in Georgia.
Yeah, that's so important. I'm so glad you mentioned your experience with trying to cross the Canadian border and how it restricts you, because people
Yes.
wouldn't even have thought that it would have stopped you from like traveling, something like this. They wouldn't have thought about that. And we always tell people, when someone is incarcerated or they're tied to the criminal justice system and they're waiting for their case to be over, it can hinder them from getting jobs because it comes up when they're applying for jobs. It could hinder them from getting apartments or housing situations, depending on, what the requirements are. So it can put restrictions on your life.
Yeah.
So that's why we fight. That's why our organization, we advocate for racial and social justice and liberation. It's very important because people take for granted that, you're really, they think that you're free, but you're not really that free,
Mhm.
because you can get incarcerated in a minute. And what advice I want to hear, is there any tips or advice you can offer anyone that's listening that might be in the same situation? Um, like you said, you had access to resources, and many times people don't have the funding to pay for a private attorney.
Right.
We know that that's a possibility, but what other advice would you give if somebody that's listening, that might be in the same situation?
Yeah, so in the very beginning of an interaction with police officers, um, if you feel your rights are being violated, um, I would definitely advise people to ask questions. What am I being charged with? Am I being detained? Am I free to go? If the police officers say that they're going to arrest you, then uh, you should immediately stop talking and ask for an attorney. Um, there are uh, jurisdictions like New York where um, free legal counsel is provided. I don't think that's true in Georgia, but uh, I think that if you are not familiar with the legal system, you should find legal counsel. But as we have discussed earlier, it's not easy finding someone who you can trust, who is not, you know, close to law enforcement that you think may compromise their ability to fully advocate on your behalf. And so uh, I spent a lot of time just finding different networks of lawyers and people who know lawyers to finding uh, the people that I think I eventually worked with and who actually helped me. There isn't one place to go, but I think talking to people who have gone through a similar experience and finding out, where they got their attorneys could be very helpful. And then also, um, it's one of the things that I experienced when I was telling my story is that some of my African American friends would tell me, um, "Oh, John, you should have just given your ID," because I think from their perspective, uh, confronting or disobeying a police officer could be a life and death situation, and I fully understand why they would say that, especially to their children, because you want to protect your family. Um, but what I've come to realize is that when uh, people who do have privilege also comply with unlawful orders or abuse of authority, we are creating a system where um, uh, African Americans are afraid, are terrified of law enforcement, and so we, the larger society, really needs to be cognizant of um, how we are also interacting with police officers and make sure that they are fully being held fully accountable, and that we are not complicit when we see harm being done by officers or incidents of injustice. We need to speak up and make sure that everyone is protected, because um, safety doesn't come from harming and oppressing others. It comes from making sure that everyone feels that the law is on our side, and that's not the society we live in today.
Yes, yes, facts. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm gonna need you on the team, John. I'm gonna need you because we get these complaints and we've been looking at this new model of like where people can call in. Have you ever heard of the participatory defense?
No.
Well, the participatory defense is like, I think it started in California, and they do monthly calls. And on this phone call, people can ask questions about their case. They help to get resources, and then they help to create like what they call it, a social bio, get character witnesses letters so to help the person to get familiar with their case and also to prepare for their case because those are people that most of the people that call don't have the funding for a private attorney. So we're looking at a way of just creating a similar model so that people can get the same advice and access to resources in real time. We can provide some help here and there with bailout support, funding. We provide bailout support and we also, help people advocate, but we want to take it up a notch, to someone like you that navigated, that is familiar with the process, you know, talking to somebody else, helping them through the process can help people gain more liberation, especially if you don't have the funding.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I am planning to go back to Georgia, hopefully this fall, and I would love to meet with you and your organization to find a way that I can support and contribute to your amazing work in Athens. But I also think, feel very strongly that long term, the solution is political power. um, the police department isn't going to change by us basically making complaints and expecting that they'll reform themselves. I think the only way that the police will listen is if um, we have people who are from uh, the movement uh, gain positions of power, whether it's the mayor's office or the city council or other positions that will have a direct impact on the police department and their funding. I think that's the only way that you're going to have real reform. And that's something that I can also help with. That's something I've have some experience with in New York City.
That would be great. Well, thank you, John. Tell the people where they can find you because that the stories that you have, I would love for people to read it, to get to know you better. And you get to, by reading the stories, you get to hear about other people's experiences. So tell people where they can find you.
Sure. You just mentioned my blog. I'm on Substack, John John Choe Choe.substack.com, and I'm also on Instagram at John Cho the number 4 NYC. Those are the two main social media platforms I'm using right now.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to having you here in Athens. And so let's stay in touch. And if anybody else if anybody else reach out to us, we'll let you know and just let's continue the conversation. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Mocha. I really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you again.